into my slightly dark crafting room this morning. It's really dark outside for 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if we're meant to get any rain or not, but it's definitely dark enough. So apologies if the colours are a little bit dark on your screen at the moment. It's just because I like to use... Oh, hang on, listen to my... I know that my volume's working anyway. Yeah, I try to do my crafting in natural light because the overhead light presents its own problems with shadows and things. So we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. Hopefully it'll make the colours darker and richer. So we'll go with that anyway. Okay, so I'm going to be doing what I would call a sometimes card for you today. Only because there's a fair bit to it and there's a fair bit of cardstock used as well. And you guys know that I tend to not go for the huge cardstock cards unless I'm doing something very, very special. But I think this one is quite special, so I'm quite happy to invest the cardstock this time round. I found it on Pinterest called a building block card, and when I open it up, you'll see why. It might be a bit tricky because the colour in the background is the same as the colour everywhere else. But if I pop my ruler up under there, you'll see, hopefully see, that each of those little rectangles is actually separate from each other. Hence it's called a building block card, because they look like a stack of little building blocks there tucked away in the corner of your card. So yeah, no, it's really, really nice, and it's not as complicated as it would appear. I know there are versions of it on various sharing sites where they've done the Z fold, that is this, the Z fold, which is this one, and then actually done a series of scores and cuts in that corner to create the building blocks out of the single piece. But in this case, we're not doing that. We're actually just adding, and you can see there it's sort of complete at the back, and we're just adding the building blocks in. Looks like my internet's a little bit staggery, so I'm just going to open my door, let the internet waves out. It's just that somebody in the kitchen's got the radio on. Oh, something fell down. Yeah, somebody in the kitchen's got the radio on, and I didn't want it to interrupt my sound. But anyway, that's okay. So yeah, so we'll hopefully the internet will get through the closed doors. Ooh, sort of spooky wise. Okay, so the reason I have chosen this paper to showcase today, it's actually the Heart and Home Designer Series paper. The reason I've chosen to showcase that with this particular card is because at the moment it's 30% off while stocks last. It's actually finishing up with the current mini catalogue, so you've only got to be able to get this one till the end of the month, till 30 June. But at 30% off, if you like it, I would stock up, which is what I actually plan on doing, because I particularly love this one. This one that's showing forwards. This particular one with the bees. I quite like that. Anyway, so let's get started. I'll pop all the measurements and all the scoring instructions on my website, so don't worry too much about that. Worrying a bit too much about the measurements. I will pop these up. I know I'm a little bit behind in doing those, so hopefully over the next week or so I'll catch up. It's been a busy couple of weeks with my dad and my mum and doing things for family, but I will catch up, I promise. Okay, so let's get started. I'll give you the basic details as we go. Right, so you start with a card base, and in this case, as we often do, make sure there's no little bits. We've got a Z, which is a Z, whichever way a Z goes. Anyway, so we've got two scores and that sort of Z look. So this is a 10.5 long piece of cardstock, and it's actually 6 inches high. So it's a wee bit larger than my normal cards. So it's 10.5 by 6, but it's scored at 3.5 and 7. So that's what those two scores are: 3.5 and 7 in that length of cardstock. And this is obviously early espresso. Probably not the easiest cardstock to see working with. And to sort of decorate that a wee bit, we've got some various pieces of pale papaya. I've chosen pale papaya as my sort of contrast colour. and again the beautiful pieces of the designer series paper, which I've cut to size. So this panel here, each of those 3 panels are 3.5 inches wide. So the pale papaya panel is 3.25, so I've taken that down 1/4 of an inch, and then the designer series paper is 1/8 of an inch again, so that would be 3 1/8 wide, and the corresponding reduction lengthwise as well. So it just could be because I'm watching on my iPad today, but it looks a little bit blurry, so it depends what you're watching on and what the picture quality of your device is, but hopefully it's not too blurry for you guys. Sort of watching for the comments as well. Apologies there. Good morning, everybody. Can see a few jumping on. That's great. Okay, so I'm just going to layer this up, this card, and we'll get as far as, I'll finish it completely, but the construction part of it is probably what you're interested in more than anything. So we'll get that done and out of the way. And then the decorating is just very individual. So I've seen this card done in various ways. Well, obviously, some people put on their little building blocks, they pop pictures like I have today with our little bees. I've seen people put, if you've got a letters and numbers die, I've seen people put a series of letters on there to spell something out. So get well. So you could do, because you've got 8 letters to choose from. So get well sort of goes quite well. You put the get on the first one. You'll see what I mean in a minute. You put the get on the first column. So G-E-T, and then maybe a heart or something, and then W-E-L-L. You can see that would work really well. I'm actually thinking I'm going to make one that's going to have HB to you, happy birthday to you, HB to you on both of them. So I think that would be quite cute as well. So I'll post that one when I make it. Oh, so many little pieces. Okay, so I've got that front one on. That's my front panel there. Okay, so let's have a little look. Just watching my comments. Okay, so then I've got 2 more panels of my pale papaya, and these are the ones that are going to go sort of our little building blocks go in the center there. So these have got to go either side of that. And I'm going to flip the paper over, and just for a wee bit of contrast. So this, as we said, this is 3.5 wide. Each of these panels is 3.5 wide. Eventually my building blocks will come out 1.5 inches. So this one has to be less than 2 inches just to fill in the gap. But you'll see where I'm coming at eventually. Could probably put these on last, but it's going to get a little bit fiddly when we put the building blocks on. So I thought I'd pop these on now. So just we've got to have one on the left-hand edge. I suppose you can probably hear that music on the background when I stop talking. I suppose that's a bit like my soundtrack. Don't know if you can hear it or not. Oh, I almost burst into song then. That would have been a terrible thing. Don't do that, Julianne. You guys don't deserve to hear me singing along to the song in the background. Okay, so we've got those. And this wood grain is really nice. Each of if you haven't seen the Heart and Home paper, each of the designs has an individual sort of wood grain on the back. This is pretty much a full pack. You can tell I have bought lots. So each of them has a pattern on the front, or sort of flowers or whatever, and then a wood grain on the back. So that's very handy for sort of like the contrasty panels like we've got here. Okay, so there's our panels of designer series paper. Now what we've got to make our little building blocks, and I've already cut and scored them, but 4 little strips of early espresso. Each of them is 6 inches long, and 1.5 inches, I think. no, 1.25 inches high, and they're scored at 1.5, 3, and 4.5. So you get that sort of cube look out of them. Sorry, can't see it there. So they're cut into sort of a cube there. So 6 inches long, 1.5, 3, and 4.5. And what I've done is I've started to decorate the panels. So what they're going to do is they're going to pop there in that corner, and they're going to pop out like we see in the actual card. So I've already started popping some of these little pieces on, and I'll just finish the last one with you. Okay, so all we need to do is decorate 2 of those little front-facing blocks. So I've got some other pieces of pale papaya, and hopefully they haven't fallen on the floor, some even smaller pieces of our Heart and Home paper. So the pale papaya would be 1.25 by 1.25 by, who knows, it's too small to know, 1.25 by 1, because it's 1/4 of an inch smaller. And then the little pieces of designer series paper would be 1.125 by 7/8. That makes sense. As again, don't worry too much unless you've got a photographic memory. I will get it up on my website. So I'm just going to pop these, and these are eventually going to have our little bees on them as well. So, but as I said, you could probably pop them on with, oh gosh, as I say, you could use alphabet dies, create a little saying. If you happen to be giving it to somebody whose name has 4 letters in it, I don't know, Glenn, Bob. No, that Bob's got 3, but anyway, you know what I mean. You could pop the name on there. I'm really keen on the happy birthday to you idea, so I'm going to do HB. And I should move that out of the way because you're absolutely not seeing what I'm doing at all. Now I'm popping the next to my last customers in the last 12 or so months. I'm popping your catalogues, your new mini catalogues, in the post today. You should get those hopefully in the next week or so, just in time for the catalogue to go live. So hopefully you'll see something there you like. It's the new mini catalogue. We'd have called it the Christmas catalogue originally, but they call it the mini catalogue now. So there we go. So as I say, they're coming out in the mail to you this week, or hopefully today if I get down the post office. Okay, so now we've got our strips. They're like that, as I say, they make little cubes, and we're just going to basically add them into the corner so that they pop out when the card is open. So what you need to do, we've got our score line there, so you can't see it, of course, but we've got the score line there, and we're going to line up the score line, the central score line of each of our little pieces of blocks with that score line, and then that's going to tell us where to glue them. Rule number 1, when you're doing a fun fold, between every edition, make sure you do a sample fold before you glue dries, just so that everything settles into place, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to add the top one and the bottom one first. Up the right way would be good. And you're leaving about 3/8 of an inch. What's that? 3/8 of an inch is it 3/8 of an inch? I can't remember now. Between each one, you've got to sort of space them out correctly. I did work it out in my other one. Maybe 3/8 of an inch is too much. What's that? That's about right. 3/8 of an inch would be, no, that's too much. Probably less than 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/16. I'll give it in centimetres, that might be easier. She says, flipping from one to the other. About 1/2 centimetre. Let's just go 1/2 centimetre between. So that first one is on there, see? It's just glued on. I'll have a practice fold just so that it folds up nicely, and that's got it settled into its final location there. Okay, just sample fold, and then that's where it's got to sit. So I'm going to do the top one. Just bring that in from the down from the top, the same amount of distance. Lining that up with the centre score line on the card itself, and then have a sample fold. Oh, didn't like that, did it? Let's try again. There we are, that's better. Okay, so that's the top one and the bottom one done. Okay, so let's do the middle two. I do the top one and the bottom one so I can get those positions right, and then it's easier to, I think, easier to sort of make sure that the middle two are the right distance, because you only got the top and the bottom of those to deal with. So we'll go that one there. And before that dries too much, we'll pop this last one on. Move that one up a wee bit if it hasn't stuck just yet. Have our sample fold. Oh, my glue just doesn't want to stick today. Oh. Come on, you guys, cooperate. Worked really well with the first one. There we are. Okay, so there we are. We have our blocks in place. So have a little bit of a practice with that. As I say, have a sample fold every time you add a component, and you'll know that the card's going to fold flat when it comes time to pop it into the envelope. Okay, cool. Just give those a firm down. Now I have noticed that once if it folds correctly that way, it won't open up completely, and I think that is just because of the distance that you lose every time there's a score line. So I think that's probably why. But I mean, nobody's going to want to open it completely flat anyway. You're going to want to have it on display like that. So it's far more important that it folds flat that way so you can pop it in your envelope. Okay, so there we are. So that's the fundamentals of this card. I mean, we're going to decorate it now with our bees and flowers and everything. But you can see how if you went from this, you could just basically the options are limited only by your imagination. So as you can see, happy birthday to you, Glenn, G-E-L-N, M-U-M with a heart, something like that. You could do whatever you wanted to with those blocks, just to sort of make them pop out of the card like that. Okay, so that is the fundamentals of this card. That's the specifics of this particular card. So let's get on and decorate it with the rest of our little bits and bobs. So I'm using everything else I'm using today is continuing in the current catalogue. I'm using, and I have to admit, I haven't used either of these very much, and they've been around for at least a year. I'm using the Honeybee Home, basically for our cute little honeybees, which is here on my left. And then the flowers and the sentiments are going to come from Quiet Meadow and the comparable die sets that go with each of those. I'm also using I think the second from smallest little rectangle from Contoured. This always gets, oh, my thingy fell off. Scalloped Contours. So that little rectangle's from Scalloped Contours. So that's what I'm using on the front. Just to break up the pale papaya a bit, I have, as I say, die cut that little rectangle, and then just cut myself a rectangle of white that's just fits pretty much perfectly in the little in between the little stitch lines of that particular rectangle. So we might pop the card aside and let those little building blocks dry, and we'll start the decoration. We'll go as far as we can go. So I'm just going to add this little panel of white, just lining it up with the stitches. So the little backing one just purely becomes a frame then. There we are. And then let's get some of this else happen. So I'll tip everything out and hopefully not lose it all. Okay, so I have some die cuts and I'm keeping the colours fairly uniform. I've got, these are from the Meadow dies. So I've got just die cuts of various leaves and foliage and things. That's in early espresso. So it's going to sit there like that. This one is in pale papaya. So I'm going to sit that off to the side. I am going to snip their little stems because I don't want them to hang over the edge too far, but I'll just show you first. And then this one's going to get cut down quite substantially. That's basic white, that one. So the three of those are just going to sit on our card front like that. Okay, so we might put those on, snip their little bottoms as well, the little legs. The glue's decided to stop coming, so I'm just going to pop a wee bit of glue on each of those sort of leaf clusters. And this little one. I'm going to cover over that the bottom part with the sentiment, so it doesn't matter too much if it looks a bit untidy down here, down at the stem end, because we're going to cut those off. I'm going to cover them over, I mean. So that's first two. And just this one. I just wanted something, just a white one, just to lift it a wee bit, just give it a bit of contrast. And he's going to have to be trimmed quite considerably. Almost feels like a shame. There we are. We've just got three little flowery bits there. Okay, so what else we're going to need? I've got, this is from the Quiet Meadow as well. There's a little bloom there. I've just stamped that in early espresso and sponged it or blended it with some pale papaya. So I've just got one more to do. I thought I'd do that with you. So we'll grab the little flower, which is straight from the Quiet Meadow stamp set. I'm going to stamp it in the early espresso. My early espresso is quite juicy and it tends to glug a wee bit, but it's okay in this case. Then I'll let that dry a wee bit. I'm going to grab my blending brush and my pale papaya ink. This is my orangey blending brush. I have a different blending brush for each colour family so they don't get too cross-contaminated. It's just a wee bit of ink on there, just starting in the middle. It's just going to give it a little hint of colour, nothing too extreme. Now, unfortunately, there is no die for this one, so I'm going to have to fussy cut it. So if you don't like fussy cutting, look away now. Won't be too long. Thankfully, it's a fairly easy image to fussy cut. Not too fussy. So hopefully everyone's having a good week so far. I know it's only Tuesday here in Australia. It's a big day in Australia, hoping for all my customers realise that there is free postage today on stamping up orders over 65 Australian dollars. So if you've got a bit of a wish list put aside and you thought you'd pop an order in, today might be the day to do it. So over $65, free postage. So that saves you, well, at least $6.50, but possibly definitely more on larger orders. So I've got my little flower there. So that's my second little flower. So I'm going to pop the two little flowers there. I've got a stitched rectangle from the stitched rectangle dies. Obviously not overly taxing when they named that one. So the stitched rectangle dies. I'm going to use the You're Too Kind because I'm going to make this one as a thank you card as well. So You're Too Kind. I'm going to do it in my early espresso. Actually, no, I decided my early espresso was too juicy for a nice defined sentiment, so I did it in black, and I might do the same thing now. Where's my black? I'll just do it in my black, my Memento black. The early espresso is so dark you probably wouldn't notice the difference, but as I say, it's so juicy it tends to blur my sentiments a bit. I probably need to sponge it off a bit. So I'm putting the sentiment on the sentiment box towards the right hand end because I'm going to tuck the left hand. That was very, very crooked. I wonder if I should turn that over. Yeah, turn that over. That was way too crooked to be allowed to start to survive. Let's hope that's better. Yep, that's better. Okay, as I said, towards the right hand end because we're going to tuck the left hand end behind our little flowers. So, right, before I do any of that, I'm going to add it to my card. So hopefully our little cubes or little building blocks have dried now into place. They have. No more lifting up. So there we are. There are our building blocks. This is going to go on the front. So I might add that now, just some glue, just because the end of my sentiment box is going to go over onto the card. So I've gone as far as I can there. So pop that on the card front. Okay. You might be all bursting into song warning here because the song they've got on the radio now is something my mum used to sing to me when I was little. It's feeling groovy until I was a child of the 60s. Okay, so there we are. We've got that on there, so that's there. So let's put our sentiment box on now. So I'm going to pop the sentiment box on some dimensionals. So there we are. And that's going to pop, as I say, over to the right-hand side towards the bottom. Just making sure I get the positioning right. Yep, towards the bottom of your scalloped rectangle. Helps when you actually take the sticky off your dimensional. There we go. So that's going to pop there, and then I'll bring these other two little flowers in. So one of them I'm going to tuck up and under the sentiment box slightly, and then the other one is going to sort of cover over that left-hand end there as well. Make sure I get them the right way. So there. So this one I'm just going to glue, and this is the one that really covers over those untidy little ends there. There we are. Now you can see why I didn't put a dimensional in the middle there. And this one there. Now I've glued that onto the actual sentiment box, but I may have to support it with a dimensional up and under as well. So let's pop one under. So we've got those. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much the front done there. We've got some flowers and some meadow grasses and things happening. So I really like that. I might bring some bling in eventually. I haven't actually got that on the first card, but definitely needs some bling. Okay, so I've got our little bees. So as I say, the inside's going to have our little bees on there, on our little building blocks. But I've got some, and I have already stamped them. So these are from the Honeybee Home stamp set and the dies. I think they're just called the Honeybee dies, I think. So there's 3 little bees in the set. So I've got 2 of each there. So 2 each of the bees, plus 1 extra of this little guy. It looks like he's just about to sit on a flower. I don't know if you see, just letting my camera focus, but it doesn't seem to want to focus that close. I think because it's a little bit dark in here today. I'm just going to pop him, because he's a spare, I'll pop him on the front there, just so that he looks like he's just about to visit those flowers. So I'm going to pop him on a dimensional and then position him just over the top of our sentiment box there. Just fills in that little gap as well. So there we are. Sort of gets lost in it all, doesn't he? But he's definitely there. Okay, so let's do the inside. Now our building blocks are ready. So I'm going to pop the 6 little bees. So we've got eight panels that we need to fill, or we want to fill. We've got 6 little bees and 2 of these tiny little tags that are in the I want to say they're in the Quiet Meadow dies. I haven't got the dies here, but one of them, I think it's the Quiet Meadow dies. Somebody can tell me if they know off by heart. Quiet Meadow dies. So I'm going to pop from the Quiet Meadow stamp set. There's one here that just says love, and that fits perfectly. I think it's actually the stamp that was designed to go with the little tags. So I'm going to put love, and I'm going to, we'll put love on one first, so remember which way. Okay, so I want the love one to go that way. So again, I'm going to use my black because my brown is so juicy. So I'm going to pop the love on this one. There we are. So tiny you can't see. And I also want a U. I want a U to say love you. And I'm going to use the U off the thinking of you, just off the end of it there. So I'm just going to use part of it. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to get some masking tape, if I can find it, or maybe just my little sticky note tape here. So I've just got some continuously sticky notes here that a friend gave me because she couldn't stand me watching me use masking tape anymore. I'm going to just mask up the thinking of with the tape, and then stamp my U. Yep, and remove that. That's the bit I always forget to do, which is very, very silly. And then I want that one going that way. And I'm just going to do my second little tag with a U. Hopefully that's in the right spot. There you go, it is. So we've got love you. love you there. Okay. So let's pop all that on. So the love and the you, I'll pop them on first because I want those in specific blocks. I'm going to put the love on the, actually I'm going to change it slightly from my original card. I'm going to put the love on this one and the you on this one. Just so they're a little bit more central than they are on my original card because they were a bit of an afterthought on the original card. So we've got that there. Here we are. I love you. So you're too kind, love you. And now let's get our bees happening. So my son's just got out of bed. My youngest son has his last exam today for mid-semester. He's got some more to go at the end of the year, but exam today. Okay, so then I'm going to pop my bees on. So I want to pop them so that they don't have the same bee opposite. Oh, he turned off the radio. Thank you, Samuel. And then this little guy will go, say, there. This little guy might go down here, and I'll stick them on when I know they're not corresponding with the same bee. Not crossways anyway. So there we are. So that's where I'm going to pop our little bees. I'll bring it closer in a minute. I should probably zoom in. This camera is a little bit far away today, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Just because if I swap from Zoom, Zoom's a lot closer for some reason. And I was just zooming the other day. I suppose that's why they call it Zoom. Just wondering which angle that little guy should be at. Oh, well, that'll do. And this one. Now, there's absolutely nowhere to write on this card. I've realised that as I look at it now. Probably have to pop either a skinny little panel on this wood grain either side or pop a panel on the back if you wanted to write something a little bit more substantial. Pop a panel on the back for your message. But either side here would be okay, just a little sentiment box, which I haven't done for this one. There we are. So our little bees are there on their little spots. I know a lot of people love honeybees, so hopefully this would find a home at somebody who's a bit of a bee lover, or just a garden lover, really, wouldn't it be? It'd be quite nice. Okay, so that is the card. As much as I said it's a sometimes card, if you've got it all cut, that's cutting it and scoring it is the big thing. But once you've got it all cut and scored, it's just fun from there. I think I will definitely try one with a nice bright one with lots of colours and HB to you, happy birthday to you on those blocks. I think that would be really cool. But anyway, so that's my card for you for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that one. I'd love to see if you give it a go, what combinations you come up with. That would be so great. So if you do, you can pop over on my Facebook page and pop the picture up. It would be really nice to see what ideas you come up with. As I say, there's lots of great ideas on Facebook on Pinterest and Instagram for this one. So yeah, so give it a go. As I say, much easier than doing all this internal scoring and cutting, I think. Yeah, so I really, really enjoy that one. Okay, so thanks for joining me. Have a great week. If I don't chat to you all before the weekend, please stay safe. As I say, catalogues are going out to everyone who's bought from me in the last 12 months. They'll go out today, or the new catalogue, and we'll actually I'll start crafting with the new products from the new catalogue probably in the next week or so once the catalogue goes live. But yeah, so thanks for joining me. Have a great day, and I will see you all next time.